Now, by far, the theory of investing is the most important, and it has several key tenets. The first and most important tenet of investment theory is that risk and return are intimately related. If you want high returns, you're going to have to take risk, which is a euphemistic way of saying that in order to make money in stocks, you're going to have to lose boatloads of money from time to time along the way. And make no mistake about it, there's no stock picking fairy or market timing fairy who will enable you to avoid these losses. Now, in contrast, if you want perfect safety, you can have it, but the price you pay for that safety will be low returns. As a general rule, stocks have higher returns than bonds. Why is this? The essential way to think about it is to imagine that I have a friend who needs, let's say, $20,000 to start a business. And since my friend lives in Portland, Oregon, where I live, it's a food cart. And let's assume that he gets $10,000 from the bank as a loan, and he gets $10,000 from me, for which I get half interest in his profits. Now, the bank charges him 5% interest and has the food cart as collateral. So it's a fairly safe business to be in from the bank's perspective. That bank's 5% return is fairly safe. It has no upside, but it also has relatively little downside, since in the event of failure, they seize the cart and get repaid in full. Now, I, on the other hand, who want a half interest, can lose all of my money if the food cart fails. If I've done my homework properly, what I've done is to generate a wide range of possibilities. One of them, and the most likely one, is the food cart is going to fail. This is not only fairly likely, but also loses me all of my money. At the other end of the spectrum, there's the infinitesimal possibility that I'll wind up with half of the next Wolfgang Puck, and there will be an infinite number of possibilities in between those two extremes. I'm not going to give him that money unless I can convince myself that all of those outcomes average out to, say, 10%, much higher than 5% safe return, to compensate me for taking all of that risk. Now, this is another way of saying that I, as a stock owner, am the residual owner half of the cart. That is, I get paid only after his employees, suppliers, and bank get paid. This is why stocks have higher returns and why they're so much riskier than bonds. To repeat, stock shareholders are the residual owners of companies. Now, since 1926, stocks have returned in the United States about 10% and bonds about 5%, which is how I picked those numbers. And compounded over the decades, that's an enormous difference in wealth. And so make no mistake about it, that extra 5% return that you get paid for stocks comes with sleepless nights, stomach acid, and some kinds of consequences that are much, much worse. Several times during that period, stocks lost about half of their value, and on one occasion, nearly 90%. A little while later, we'll talk about just what the world looks like at those times. This gets to the second basic tenet of finance, which is that it's relatively easy to calculate the expected returns of stocks and bonds.